All right, here it is. It is a Monday. Kind of weird. It rained this morning here in LA. It's humid. I don't know. It's a tropical environment on this Monday, July 26th in Los Angeles. Feeling pretty good, I must admit. I've been on a good little, a good spirits in my brain ride. Feeling the vibes, feeling good. I don't know. Got friends around me, and I'm pretty damn happy this week. So I like to celebrate that as much as the lows. I like to celebrate the highs also. Here it is, Let There Be Talk on the Cactus Radio Network, my network, busting my ass to bring you guys incredible guests. And today is a doozy. I don't know why I said that. We've got a doozy here today. I don't know. But you know how I love drums and drummers, great drummers. I've had a lot of the legends on Let There Be Talk. And my man today, filmmaker Justin Kreutzmann, son of Bill Kreutzmann from the Grateful Dead, has made a fantastic documentary film on a bunch of great drummers and their lives and their families and everything called Let There Be Drums. It is not out yet, but it will be soon. And I got to see a little screener of it, and I was blown away by it, and I had to have Justin on right away. And holy shit, this guy has lived the rock and roll life. He's been around the Grateful Dead his entire life, of course. His dad was and still is, the drummer of Dead & Co., Grateful Dead, and all those Billy and the Kids and all that. If you haven't read Bill Kreutzmann's book, oh my God, dig into that. But Justin, holy shit, this guy has made a name for himself in the documentary rock and roll film world. And I got to tell you, let me give you a little rundown of some of the stuff that he did. He worked on the incredible Grateful Dead documentary Long Strange Trip, The Who Fragments. He's also worked on The Bachelor from 2015 to right now. I've never seen The Bachelor, but I know it's one of the biggest shows on the planet. I am fucking this intro up. I don't care though. It's natural and organic. It's real. This is how it comes out sometimes. Anyway, tons and tons of great rock and roll projects he has been involved with. It was great to have him on. He's part of that Grateful Dead history, and that history is massive, and it's big in my life now over the last, I don't know, 15, 20 years or whatever. I started really going crazy over the Dead, so it was cool to talk to Justin, and he made a fantastic film. The more that we can give these drummers glory, the more people will understand how important it is to have a kick-ass drummer in your band and how legendary these guys are. I mean, you know, everybody just wants to talk to the front man and the guitar player, but really, it's all about the drummer. Speaking of the Dead & Co. and all that, the Dead family, I've got to take a moment out right now to give a massive thank you to John Mayer, man. This guy, I don't even know how to explain it, but I've been doing the show like 10 years, and over the 10 years, I've interviewed amazing people that I didn't know and later on became friends with. Some not, some I don't see ever again, but John Mayer is very, very special couple of episodes for me because we didn't know each other very well, just floating around the Comedy Store and the Comedy Cellar. And then, you know, he came over and he did the show, and I've got this friendship now that is just insane. So I come home on Thursday and there's a big cardboard box on my front door. And I'm like, what the hell is this? And I bring it in and I open the box. There's nothing on the box. Doesn't say anything. And I open it up and it's a goddamn guitar. It's a Paul Reed Smith and it's the John Mayer model. Silver Sky in the Roxy Pink, which I have named the guitar Bubble Yum, my old favorite bubblegum Bubble Yum. And I got to tell you, man, I was fucking floored. I still cannot get over how fucking cool this guy is. He sends me a guitar. I text him, I said, did you send me this guitar? And he goes, I thought you would dig it. And it's just, that kind of shit, man, is amazing. When somebody, I mean, look at the level of that guy's a star. He's like, I'm going to send Dean a guitar today and just surprise him. And I'm never going to forget it, man. I played the guitar all weekend. I haven't played guitar in a while. And I was just like, this is the coolest thing ever, man. So thank you, John Mayer. And I'm just blown away. Also, thank you, Justin, for being such a cool guest coming on here, telling some great stories. I want to give a big shout out to the new John Mayer record and the new Wallflowers record. I'm still listening to both these records. I think that they are both some amazing displays of songwriting. So if you haven't listened to those yet, still do yourself a favor, people, and get into Sob Rock or Exit Wounds. Both records are just next level. I'm going to be at the Sacramento Punchline this week, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. There's minimal tickets left, but if you are going, buy tickets for the late Friday night. For some reason, that show seems to be a little soft. Who doesn't like to go out later on a Friday night after work? Strange. I don't know. That usually is the show that sells out. But if you're going to come out, buy tickets for that night. I hope to see you guys out there. I'm working on all this new material. I feel pretty good about it. Also, I want to say congratulations to the Comedy Store last night, the Names Night. My man Danny Lucas, 25-year man at the store, the sound man, got his name on the wall there. I had him on the show years and years ago. I love him. He is pure rock and roll, and he is a great human, and it was a great celebration last night at the Comedy Store for him and getting his name on the wall. We had a great time. Mark and I, Bobby Lee, and Chris Porter, all of us in the parking lot shooting the shit. Who else was there? Kevin Christie, all the cool friends. And it was a good night, really special night. Felt good. And I want to shout out the new Patreoners: John Crable, Evan Johnson, Comet Fish, George Barber, Eric Stroud, Dan Steely, Matt Short. Thank you for joining my patreon.com/Dean Del Rey. All right. I've got bonus episodes on there. I've got 108, I believe. And every week I do a Zoom fest with all of the fans. The Dark Fonzies, the Del Razors, all of you joining me on Patreon for some fun, shooting the shit about records, music, books, films, whatever, comedy. And I'm going to do one tonight. So if you're on Patreon, join me. It is time to talk about NordVPN. I've been back traveling again, which means I'm in the pockets of scammers trying to get into my computer while I'm at shitty airport Wi-Fi and restaurant Wi-Fis and Starbucks Wi-Fis. So I'm using NordVPN. And I'll tell you what, this is full-on protection. I love it, man. People can just get into your computer. You don't even care. You're just like, I need Wi-Fi. I don't care what happens. The guy next to you is just stealing all your info. And it's getting worse and worse, man. I'm using NordVPN. And I'll tell you what else it's cool for. You got access to over 59 different countries by changing your virtual location with one click. It means you can watch stuff early also. Like if you want to watch Peaky Blinders early on the UK streaming, you can just change your your global positioning, your virtual address. Look, you don't know what any of this means. What I'm going to tell you right now is it's basically full-blown protection, and it helps you. Like, I like it because I travel a lot. But even if you don't travel, your neighbor could be jumping onto your computer. Go to nordvpn.com/Delray and get yourself a 2-year plan plus a bonus gift with a huge discount. I use this. I'm telling you, I don't like people knowing where I'm at surfing on the internet. I can't stand pop-up ads. I look at a pair of shoes and all of a sudden, bloop, bloop, bloop. The whole time I'm getting ads for a week. Hey, get these Nike Blazers. I'm telling you, get yourself NordVPN and, stop people from checking out where the hell you're surfing around. NordVPN.com/Delray for huge discounts. And it's a 30-day trial. You don't like it? Yeah, you get your money back. All right? So check it out. Stop using those terrible airport and Starbucks Wi-Fi's where people are looking at your data and stealing shit from you. That's what you got to do, man. You got to protect yourself. This digital world's just it's all going to be cyber crime. There's not any regular crime anymore. It's just cyber crime. And it's just a pain in the ass. Mark and I were talking about it on Dark Fonzie, getting our identities stolen, getting hacked, all of that shit. And the worst part about it is you have to deal with it all, and it takes months and months. So get a VPN right now. NordVPN.com/Delray. It helps me. It helps you. And it's a great company. Okay. All right. CactusRadioNetwork.com for all of your Dean Del Rey podcast. Dark Fonzie, new episode will be out Wednesday. A new At Home with Byron Katie tomorrow, and a new Grail this week. I love all you guys. I hope to see you in Sacramento this week. Keep the candles lit. Thank you for your love. Thank you, Justin, for doing the show. Great stories. Here he is right now. Light the candles of rock. All right, here we are, another episode of Let There Be Talk. Great guest today. Introduce yourself, my man.
I'm the guy who wasn't just flushing the toilet, in case you heard that in the introduction. This is Justin Kreutzmann, sitting here.
Yeah, son of Bill.
Yes.
Grateful Dead drummer, of
Sounds
course.
very mythic. Son of Bill.
Son of Bill. That sounds like a good band name.
Son of Bill.
Dude, you could go see Son of Bill?
They could open for my dad's band, Billy and the Kids.
Yeah.
Son of Bill. I see a trend.
It's funny to talk to you. I'm infamous on this podcast of hating the Dead growing up in the Bay Area because it was just in my face.
I fully understand that.
Yeah.
In fact, a lot of my friends either didn't know about the Dead or actively disliked the Dead. But this was also the 70s, so it was a different time.
Right.
But, I definitely gravitated towards that crowd just because they were more fun.
Yeah. It's interesting to, in my life, what I love is stuff that I didn't like back then. Now I love. And so I think if I loved everything when I was growing up, I'd be out of shit to love. You know what I mean? You hit the ceiling. You're like, well, I've listened to all the music. I'm good, you know? So now in the last, 20 years or so, I'm just obsessed with the Dead. I mean, I always liked Working Man's Dead because I was way into alt country. Mm-hmm. I was way into country music and that stuff. But I think it was mostly just the fans that kind of turned me off because I was living off of Haight over on 10th Avenue. And it would always
Should I
be
just
like,
apologize now? I always feel like when people tell me these stories, I should go, I'm sorry. Or when someone's like, my daughter used to follow your dad's band. I'm like, I always want to be like, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
Yeah. It's wild though because it's definitely engulfed my life and also my attitude towards other people and opened up many doors of just feeling good.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I just love the Dead.
Well, when you say it's engulfed your life, like in what way? I'm just curious.
Well, I'm not like in a way of like the music makes me feel better. Mm-hmm. And I've understood all the different eras now, going through all the different keyboard players. Of course, I was a Pigpen guy, but then later on, I was Midland, and then I think really what happened was I was out on this jam cruise.
Oh, wow.
I went out for a free ride.
Trapped on a boat with jam people.
But I went because the Mother Hips were playing.
Okay.
And Mother Hips are one of my favorite bands. So that's the funny thing about me. I find the Dead backwards. I worship the Allman Brothers. And then the Black Crowes get into kind of jamming. And then I love Mother Hips. So it's all backwards to the ground zero.
Gotcha.
So I'm on this jam cruise in Jamaica somewhere. I got to go free, and I just started comedy, this new period in my life, about 11 years ago. And I'm in the main showroom on this ship. It's a bad storm, and that Dead cover band's playing, that big one, Dark Star Orchestra. Yeah. They open with Shakedown Street. Now, I am a giant disco guy.
Okay.
I love Saturday Night Fever. I love all of that. So I recognize right away the flavor.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting with Greg from the Mother Hips, and I go, hey, what song is this? And he goes, this is Shakedown Street. And from then on, dude, it was on.
It was on. Oh, my God. Okay. I have to. Do you know the Saturday Night Fever story with the Dead?
No.
Oh, my God. I didn't believe this for decades until I was interviewing Mickey Hart, and he told the story again. And when the camera's off, I'm like, was that an acid trip, or did this really happen? Apparently, when Saturday Night Fever came out, Mickey took Jerry, they were on tour, took him down to see the movie. They all come back to the hotel, get the rest of the band together, and try to explain disco. Doing the dances, and like, no, this is it. And we do these kind of beats, and you do these moves, and you wear this white suit, and you do all... I'm like, get the fuck out of here, Mickey. So, like, you and Jerry were demonstrating John Travolta from Saturday Night Fever for the rest of the band to explain disco. And, like, 100%. And so every time I hear that song, I just get this visual in my head of those guys, like, wait, so my dad's probably like, okay, wait, it's 4 on the floor? Wait, you do what? You're really analytical with it, like, da-da-da. So that led directly to Shakedown Street and probably the disco revival of Dancing in the Streets that they did in that period. But that's literally my favorite story. They both loved Saturday Night Fever and wanted everyone to experience it.
Well, it's really weird that a Saturday Night Fever is what grabs me into the Dead later in life. Of like, the band opens with this, and I'm just like, whoa, what is this, And from then on, I've been full on Dead, like full on. I've seen Dead and Co. everywhere. I went to the Fare Thee Wells, and unfortunately, I missed the actual Dead, which is crazy. I've seen everyone except for Zeppelin, Skynyrd, and Dead.
Oh wow,
Grateful Dead.
Wow, yeah. I never saw Zeppelin. I worked with Skynyrd, but it was post Skynyrd. I got to get you the. I did a Black Crowes video from '95, right before Jerry died. Happened to be in Europe, and I ran into the Black Crowes, who had just opened for the Dead, I think that spring.
Right.
So I got to know Chris a little bit, and ended up touring with them, not in any kind of work facility, but just I had a Super 8 camera, and I started shooting stuff, and it was just 95 Crows was a great time to be with that band.
Fire.
If you weren't sober.
Yeah.
Like, it was like I was sleeping on the bus. And
also that's the best era too.
It was insane. I mean, put it this way. I mean, they were opening for the Stones on that tour. And by the end of my run, Keith Richards' dealer was on our bus. He's like, there's way more business happening over here. So I'm just like, don't need to say anymore. Just, you can connect the rest of the dots on that one. But it was a fun time had by all. And so I was shooting Super 8 black and white film just to give me something to do. And so I've got some just insane footage of those guys and us touring around, Europe.
Wow, that's the best era, too. I mean, if you go from Southern Harmony to Three Snakes, that is the band to me. First record, it's cool, but it doesn't have the depth of those next 3 records.
Yeah.
And the band, once Mark Ford gets in and Eddie on keys, it's a whole different animal.
Yeah, I like those guys a lot. I mean, I'm the ones that are still alive, I'm sure I would still like them. I ran into Phil's place, Terrapin, maybe a couple years ago, but... Yeah, that was kind of my brief stint in Crow's world, and I made a utter fool of myself and probably a lot of things that are hard to live down, which fortunately I can't remember. So, and it all looks good on black and white Super 8 film. So
it does. I love your story because it is a lot like mine. We are close to the same age, and as I read your dad's book, they talk about this whole Apocalypse Now thing of doing the music. And I was reading that just floored because I am, that film to me is everything. That, Raging Bull, Jaws, and The Godfather. Those are the films to me. I mean, we can keep going, Cuckoo's Nest and on, but that is the film. I've seen it in every configuration. I know everything about it.
They're still putting out new versions of it.
Just did, the final.
There's the final director's cut with the new commentary and the other 16 minutes that you didn't see from this other angle.
Yeah,
and I buy them all. I
buy them all. I see them all. I go wherever. Anytime it's at the ArcLight. I saw a full version of it at the Castro. I saw the Redux at the Cornet Theater on Geary. I'm obsessed with that film. I did a movie with fucking Hopper, and all I did was talk to him about that. He was telling me great stories about it.
He was the man. He was, Have you ever seen those photos? I know the whole world all gets back to the Grateful Dead, but have you seen the photos that he took of the band in 1967 or 68?
No.
In LA?
Is it in his photo book?
I don't know that it's in. It was. I think his gallery or somebody representing his estate was selling prints of it. But Jerry told me the funny story is, it was early in the band's career, and Warner Brothers are like, yeah, we're sending this photographer to do we need some promo pictures. And Jerry's like, aren't you the guy from Giant? Weren't you in Rebel with it? And he's like, you're Dennis Hopper, the actor.
Yeah,
and he's like, oh, yeah. And he totally knew who he was. And then years later, he becomes Dennis Hopper. But Hopper came to see the band with Dylan in 87. And, well, I've got to start the story a little bit back. Jerry loved Blue Velvet, with a burning passion. When we were making In the Dark, and I was like a 3,000th engineer. So when I say we, it's like the grand we. It's not like, hey, with Justin, what do you think of this take? Wasn't really that.
Yeah.
Kind of, it's like, hey, can you get us a Coke? There was that kind of, Coca-Cola. Anyway, after one of the days, Jerry's like, oh, it's playing in the city. We got to go. So Jerry picks us up in the car, me and Dad and Annabelle and Sunshine Kesey, and we all squeeze in my dad's car. Jerry takes us down to somewhere, one of those revival houses in the city. You'd probably remember the name of the theater. I don't, but it was one of those one-night only Blue Velvet showings, and we all go and we all love it. And Jerry just, when he would dissect something after we experienced something like Blue Velvet, like the shots and the way the story was told and the actor, it was just great to hear his take on something. So he just loved Blue Velvet. So when Dennis Hopper came to see the Dead and Dylan in 1987, Jerry had gotten everybody in the Dead camp just fired up about Blue Velvet. And Dennis Hopper was walking around going, it's freaking me out, man. I've never been around so many people that like that movie.
Wow.
And they really like me in it. It's really like, everyone was just like, you're Frank, Frank,
Yeah.
And if you could freak Dennis Hopper out by being too into one of his characters.
Yeah.
So that was my best memory of Blue Velvet. We actually ran into Laura Dern at the Long Strange Trip Sundance thing, and I got to tell her that story. And so it's always funny when we intersect with somebody that's connected to Blue Velvet, because that was just one of those moments I had, one of my Jerry moments. I was just really, going to a movie with a guy. It's a pretty mundane experience, but it was just so much fun to see it through his eyes.
Yeah, you and Jerry would bond over films, right? He was a big film buff, and you guys would just talk about films all the time, right?
Totally. That was my connection to Jerry. It started with Apocalypse, and Dad and Mickey were doing music for it, and I got to be around the Coppola family and see the film. Each time Francis would bring a new cut up, he would sit and explain the movie in terms of rhythm and what's going on and how here the jungle should be making this kind of sound and this is what this character is doing. And, I'm like 7, 8 years old, so most of it's going way over my head, but I'm just like, I don't know what this guy's doing, but it looks cool. I want to do what he's doing. Like, and you're watching Apocalypse Now, so you're like, this is like really, really cool. And so I just got into movies, and Dad bought me the Super 8 camera, and I don't have it anymore, but I had this great letter. He asked Bill Graham to ask George Lucas what I should do to get in the film business. This is This is right after Star Wars. So I'm like, can we just ask George, the little kid, like, just ask George if he's got any toys and what I should do. So Bill Graham writes him a letter and says, George, Bill Kreutzmann's son wants to get into film. What should he do? And George wrote back, and I had this great letter from George Lucas saying, well, you should buy a Super 8 camera and, start shooting home movies. And I just completely did that. At the time, it was cool. As years went on, I realized how super cool that was. Just that whole chain of, and I know it sounds really name droppy, but at the time it wasn't. It was because Bill happened to be there at the show. I remember it was at the Warfield. They were doing that run at the Warfield, 1980, and it was. So those are my memories about film. And to get back to Jerry, that was the level I could communicate with him on when I was a kid. Because when you're 8, you don't have any barrier of worrying about having to be smart or that you maybe don't know as much. You're just the kid. And so we talk about, like, I was really into Spielberg and, like, Jaws and Close Encounters. And he was really into Close Encounters and Jaws. And so we talk about the shots and how his style had changed. We get into and this is before the band flew private. So, like, we're just killing time in airports. You're like just, you've got 3 hours before the next flight to Denver.
Yeah.
So it's like, I couldn't bond with him on a musical level because I didn't play music, and 2,
and he probably liked you because you weren't talking about music,
Yeah,
it's like after a while, it's like, when I hang out with comedians, we don't talk about comedy, maybe for like 2 minutes, and then we're off to in it something else. So yeah, I get it.
So that's what we bonded on is just movies, and he always remembered that, and that was our connection right up until he died. I mean, I remember the last conversation we had. It was really about the song Days Between, but it was because we were sitting in the van together waiting to go to the hotel. It wasn't like we made a point to talk to you. It was just because you're sitting there waiting to get to, that lot, waiting to get to the, after the gig. I also remember it was in Salt Lake City, and there was a cheerleading convention at the hotel, and the visiting cheerleaders had won the competition. So when we walked in, they were celebrating and taking photos, and my dad and Jerry got in with the cheerleaders, who looked really perplexed. They had no idea who these old men were, but the coaches were all like, oh my God, this is so cool, pose with us. There's pictures of it out there somewhere, but if anyone's ever wondering what's up with the cheerleader pictures, and imagine staying on a floor where every room is a cheerleading squad. There was pom-poms flying everywhere, and it looked like a scene from sort of like a clean version of Porky's, I guess. Running from room to room and screaming, and it was, we were definitely the most tame out of all the people there, and that's saying something.
Yeah, that is funny, man. Yeah. At that era of the Dead, I think it was all just kind of been there, done that,
Well, I mean, it was 1995, and we were in Salt Lake City.
Yeah.
So,
I get it.
Nothing. I mean, I'm sure Salt Lake City's a rockin' town. It's just, what do you do at night when you don't know anyone in Salt Lake City?
Yeah.
And you got a whole cheerleading convention at your hotel.
That's funny to think about talking about Jaws with like Jerry, because he was a big scuba diver and stuff. So
Yeah, this is actually way before the scuba diving era. This is when I think Close Encounters was a new movie. Like all this stuff was new.
77, 78.
77, 78. Because I remember this. We might have been going. And I could be making this up. I think we were going to Red Rocks 78. Somewhere like that. It was like summer because I wasn't in school, and it was like flying commercial, and we we're going to one of those kind of shows, and Close Encounters was great, and just, getting his take on anything was really, really interesting because he was a really interesting guy. And we were doing In the Dark. I remember, I've told this story before, but, we were recording at Front Street, which is in San Rafael, California, and he lived not that far. So sometimes we'd take a break and we'd just go up to his house and have lunch or just, kill time. Again, killing time while you're waiting for something. And we'd watch MTV. So let's just see what's going on. Let's see what, really he wanted to see, like, what are people doing now? Like, what are the cool effects? What's going on? And this is honest to God, I don't remember the name of the band, but it wasn't like a Van Halen or one of those kind of harder rock bands that are really great and like, great musicians. It was definitely a spandex, cheesier kind of band. And I just remember I was dying for it. I was sitting there, I was going, I want to know what he thinks about this. And I was looking at him like, I'm waiting for it. And he's like he's kind of looking over his glasses. He's watching the guy like totally doing one of those and I'm just like, oh, he's gonna have something. I was waiting for it, and he's like, it's just so mindless. And I'm just like, boom, thank you, boom, capper right on the end of it. And I wish I should have remembered the band, but I'm kind of glad I don't because
Well, it's the whole, you know.
It was 1987 MTV. It was right there. And this is before In the Dark or Touch of Grey came out or anything like that. So
It's funny to think about the era of films that we were surrounded in, because it got me obsessed with films, especially when we get into later of the massive indie explosion. But, you know, we got even stuff like Bad News Bears. That is a crushing film, you know, Fast Times at Ridgemont High. And then we have, you know, like I said, Cuckoo's Nest, Chinatown, and all that incredible era. So the films were just all great. It seemed like it was really wild. And then we get into, you know, like you say, we get into Blue Velvet, Drugstore Cowboy, Wild at Heart, all of those kind of cool indies that were playing. And indie had a great run. And that's really when I was like, man, I'd love to be into film, you know, be an actor.
Gus Van Sant, you got to give it up to Gus Van Sant.
100%.
I mean, I again, not to make this a name-droppy experience, but when I got to meet, let me throw out 3 like really famous names, and I'll preface it with this isn't a name-droppy kind of story.
I'm the same way though. I always feel the same way when I go on people's podcasts.
So I'm hanging out with Bill Burr, and we were like,
no, they're like, hey, tell some stories, and I'm like, well, you tell them. And I say this a lot of times. I get uncomfortable because people go, this guy's a liar, you know, or whatever. So then I have to blast my Instagram with photos and just be like, hey, just so you don't think I'm fucking making shit up, you know.
Well, see, fortunately with my last name, people pretty much believe.
Right.
That, you know, they're like, but so I'm at Ken Kesey's house.
Yeah.
We're having dinner, and Gus Van Sant comes over, and I'm just like, it was one of those things like the whole room just kind of went away into soft focus, and I was just like, dude, and I think My Own Private Idaho maybe had just come out, but I was just like Drugstore Cowboy, My Own Private Idaho, and he was super nice, and we became friends, and later went on a lot of really crazy fun adventures with Gus, and him, Gus, Coppola, Spielberg, Lucas, Scorsese. I mean, it just, you always have a heart for the ones you grew up with and the stuff that really hit with you. But I mean, they're just the best. I mean, and not to say that there isn't others equally, you know, and it's not a competition, but it's like, you know, for me, those are my top tier. I'll watch anything by any of those guys.
Absolutely.
even the bad ones. You wish you could do as well.
I think one of the most underrated from that whole era is Matt Dillon. I think Matt Dillon is one of the greatest actors of our time, and he did nothing but stellar films. If you look at, you know, The Outsiders, Drugstore Cowboy, Rumblefish, Little Darlings, even later on Drive, and the last one he did, The House That Jack Built. This guy is epic actor, and his performances are stellar, and that Drugstore Cowboy film is unreal to me, you know.
It's so, I mean, I never got to meet Matt. I mean, he's still around. I hope I will one day. But when I was working for Pete Townsend, we were doing these shows called Attic Jams, and we did one at Joe's Pub in New York. And Matt came to the show because his friend Jay Mascis was playing. And he was standing there, and everybody was just talking to him. And we had a mutual friend named Gio Coppola, who was Francis's son, and they had worked together on The Outsiders and Rumblefish. And Gio always told me that Matt was a huge Rolling Stones fan. And Gio didn't really know that much about the Stones, so Matt bought him like a cassette of Exile on Main Street. He's like, you have to live and get to know this music. Like, just listen to it over and over and make this part of your life. And Gio still had the cassette, and just like Matt really loved music and really loved the Stones. And I just didn't want to be another guy going over to him, and like I would have had to sort of cut in, and I knew he probably would have related that we had a mutual friend, but I just didn't want to bug him. But yeah, I mean, you got to give it up to Matt Dillon.
Holy shit, man. It's what I mean. The film era from that. Also, there's great guys now, you know, that make films that really blow my mind, that have had just incredible runs. But that stuff back then is just, I watch it all every time it's on.
Yeah, I got the Blu-ray, and I still watch it on cable, and I love all that kind of stuff. It's so inspiring. It's so inspiring. It's almost terrifying to look at something and just wonder if you can ever do anything that anybody else will watch and then get any of that kind of appreciation. And like, you know, I'm not a musician, but I imagine if I was a musician and you hear the Beatles, like, and you're just like, wow, am I ever going to do anything that's going to get people to react that same way and stuff like that? And I know you can't really get your head caught up in that kind of stuff, but yeah, I mean,
Well, it's also back when like studios and record companies took chances with people. Studios, man, they took chances. They made indie films. They're not worried about 800 superhero films. So they took chances, and record companies took chances with bands. Yeah, I mean, the Grateful Dead. How are you going to sign that band these days, you know?
Oh, yeah, no, my dad said, like in 1967, contracts were flying around. Like, everybody, like, that was the hit. They were in the pocket of, like, here's the next big thing. And so it's like, Warner Brothers, like, here, we need a rock band. Let's get the Grateful Dead. They're not signed. Look, the Jefferson Airplane are doing really well.
Yeah.
And he's like, we never would have gotten a contract any other way. Like, there's no way anybody would have looked at us and been like, oh, yeah, that's a money-making proposition right there.
The filming of that early stuff too, when you get into old Kodachrome and the 8mm stuff, when you look at that Haight Street, Haight-Ashbury, every time they show the shots of that, man, it looks like an old Dragnet or something. It's just got this badass look, like an old surfer film.
Yeah.
And they're just playing, and you're like, look at the colors pop off this shit, you know? I don't understand why they ever got away from that. I think it looks so much better than 4K and all that shit now.
Well, you want to hear a crazy Super 8 Haight-Ashbury story? When I was 8 years old, and I only remember this because the band was playing at the Warfield, and it was a unique run of shows, so it just stuck in my head.
I love that run.
Yeah, and so we were going there every night, going through. And there was this guy named Laval, who I didn't know, but he was part of the crew from Haight-Ashbury, and he'd been around. And I was talking to him about how much I was into film and Super 8, and he's like, hey, I want to give you something. I think you should hold on to this. And, I'm 10.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, cool. He brings 2 reels of Super 8 film, sets them down. He's like, this is the home movies I shot the day that all the bands posed in the park.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, oh, that's cool. So I take the film. I put it up in our barn up in like Mendocino.
Yeah.
I forget about it for decades. I go to make this thing called Backstage Pass, and I'm like, hey, Dad, do we still have that film in our barn? He's like, yeah, it's right here. So it's literally, I don't know the exact date, but it's summer 1967, Grateful Dead, Jefferson Airplane, Quicksilver, Janice. Everybody is posing at 710. They all walk down the street, pose in the park with Bill Graham, Danny Rifkin, Rock Scully, all the managers, and I've got 45 minutes of it. And so anytime you see a documentary where you see all those guys on the street, that's this footage from Laval.
Wow.
And it's just like it was like I felt like he was giving me this like secret skull or something. Like, here's this footage. He's giving it to a 10-year-old kid who, fortunately, I didn't blow it and like lose it or something like that. So it's in our vault now, and we still have it. And he's just since passed away, unfortunately. But it's one of those like most iconic moments. And to your point, everything is so vivid and colorful, and the film looks great. Everybody being in their summer of love.
The clothing
is bright.
The guitars, the amps.
Young and bright and fresh. And so it was just, I don't know why he did that. I mean,
I got like 4 rolls of The Dead, Dan the Green, 8mm I bought off eBay.
Really?
Yeah, I got them here because I want to do a Dan the Green documentary, so I collect everything Dan the Green.
I need to talk to you. I met Keith Moon that day. Was that the Who?
Yeah.
I
got
October
the
1976.
Yeah, isn't that
was my first Who show.
Whoa!
I remember that because it was Dad put me on his shoulders because I could see Who stenciled on the top of Townsend's amp.
Yeah.
And again, everything in my life seems to happen around 7 or 8, and the sound, I could see the sound. It was so loud. Like literally waves of volume were just like penetrating my young skull. And I was like, the Who, they didn't become my favorite band then, but it planted this seed so that by the time we got to Rock Palace in 81 and I saw the Who again, I was like, that's the band. But I have this memory of my dad's like, I want to introduce you to somebody. And I was really, really shy. So I would hide behind his leg. Literally I was the kid like holding on to his pant leg. And he like pulls me out. He's like, this is Keith. He drums for the Who. And I remember Keith got down on one knee and said, hello, dear boy. I just remember that because I remember thinking how cool that he got down on my eye level. Wow. And of course I was just like, oh, that's the drummer for the other band, and didn't really register. But then later I'm like, oh my God, I met Keith Moon. Again, name dropping story number 8 on this podcast.
I'll take it. That's amazing.
But let's talk about this film now.
Yeah.
Because
So
you may know I do films.
Yeah, you do films, and I want to get into that because you've worked on some great Dead stuff over the years. The other one, which I think is the ultimate film, the other one, I love that one.
Oh, great.
The Long Strange Trip is fantastic, but the other one really tore me up. You know,
Do you like it's personal. It's a very personal.
It's really deep
to Bob. That's actually why I'm in Los Angeles, because of the director Mike Fleiss. He says, I do this TV show. If you want to be an editor on it. I'm like, sure. What's the show?
Yeah.
Like, it's called The Bachelor. And of course, my wife's just like, you idiot. It's
Yeah.
like the most popular show ever in the history of the world. And I was probably one of 3 people who really just
I've never seen it.
I'd never seen it.
I know what it is from Twitter feeds, but I've never seen it. I don't watch any reality TV at all. I go out and live it.
I didn't really either, but you know what? It's been a great home. It's allowed us to live down here and become part of the union and be a place where I can support my family and do my crazy rock and roll movies that don't make any money.
It's fantastic. I mean, that's to have job security. I get it.
But anyway, Mike directed the other one, and that's how I got to know him and his whole. He was very nervous about it not appearing like reality. Like, we made a point of not. Even if Bob was halfway through a sentence and he's like, "Oh, do you want me to just say that again?" And like, no.
Yeah.
Like he was so nervous that people were going to be like, reality TV guy doing a documentary, is anything staged?
Yeah.
And then the other projects come along where they create whole backstories that didn't really exist and shoot scenes of finding footage that didn't happen at all, and totally do all the stuff that I'm just like, Mike, look, see, you can get away with a little bit of that, but
yeah, that film's.
I was about to launch into some story, and I was like, I probably should not. I don't want to make anyone
I get
feel
it.
bad.
I get it. So yeah, you are a filmmaker, and you have a film coming out called Let There Be Drums. And I am obsessed with drums.
Did you watch it?
Absolutely.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I'm going to get into it right now. I've had...
Just so you know, it's really nervous when you send somebody a link and you don't hear anything back.
Oh, you know why?
You're just like, Judd Apatow asked to see it, and so I sent it to him, and I'm like, I know he's making a movie in London. I get just sort of like, is he being really polite? Like, he doesn't want to tell me it sucks.
No. Well, yeah, I didn't want to talk to you about it because I wanted to talk to you on the mics about it.
Perfect.
But I've had some of the greatest drummers ever on my podcast. In 10 years, I've had more drummers than anybody else on the podcast, and I always felt that drummers need to be showcased because they don't get enough glory. And there was a great scene that I've said for years and years and years. There's a great scene in your film where one of the guys says, show me, it was Chad. And he said, show me a great band and I'll show you the great drummer. There's no great bands with a bad drummer. And I've said that all my life. And drums are so bizarre to me because it's such a hard instrument to play. You either push or you're behind the beat or you're right on it, or you have bad meter, or you have great meter. It's all these explanations that you cannot learn. It's pretty much in your soul.
And you got to play with other people. You got to be, are you in time with him or him?
Yeah.
When the guitar player says you're playing too slow and the bass player is saying you're playing too fast, which one do you believe? And
it comes down to most people don't even realize it. But the people that love music do realize it. Like if you look at a Phil Rudd against Chris Slade, when you're looking at guys that have been in a famous chair, a Matt Sorum, a Steve Adler, where you can really go, oh, these dudes, this is what's different. And I played with so many great drummers, and it's changed my band over the years instantly.
Yeah.
It was like, oh, man. And it's almost like great drugs. You're like, God, we used to be doing this pure cocaine. Now we've got some cocaine, but it's a little cut, you know? And it's
I know 100% what you're talking about. And that's one of the reasons I didn't want to be a drummer is I felt my dad was pretty good at it, and I just felt he's had some success. And I honestly, I was like, I don't think, unless I'm going to be on that level, because it's not like I probably could have taken up the drums and just practiced around and not have my dad go, no, come on, let me show you. This is how you're supposed to be doing it. And I was like, yeah, let me do. I wanted to do my own thing, but I was always fascinated, just because drummers were in our world. Like, we'd run into drummers, and when your dad's the drummer in the Grateful Dead, people come up and say hi to you. And that's how I got to know a lot of these people. Is just because they were drummers and stories, and like the Taylor Hawkins of the world, right? Like, I didn't know him from Adam, but he went to some of my dad's shows, so we were talking about it, and I loved seeing, it was Dead and Company, but to him it's all sort of Grateful Dead. I love seeing it through his eyes, like his not rock and roll. And I love there's a part in the film where he's like, because I'm like, you're never gonna get Dave Grohl. He's like, no, Dave is never gonna come to a Dead show, but yeah. No, so no, I'm glad you enjoyed it. We're hoping to get that out there to the world sometime this year.
It is an amazing film, man, because for one thing, it's great when you hear this Ringo Starr get glory, because I recently had Phil Rudd on the show from AC/DC, who's I consider one of the greatest drummers of all time, just because no one can do what he does. You'd think it's just nothing. You're going, oh, he's just going boom, crack, and then everybody tries to do it, and AC/DC sounds different, feels different.
Totally.
You see cover bands do it or whatever, you go, they don't have the feel.
Exactly.
But it is amazing to see Ringo get some glory in there, and Chad from the Chili's loved him, and Phil Rudd loved him.
Yeah.
And he just said, that was my guy, which is wild.
Well, Ringo, I mean, yeah. What can you say about Ringo and the Beatles? It's, I don't know why there's not a statue of him in every city in the world. It's just, he was always my favorite Beatle because he was a drummer when I was a kid. And the Beatles were like the only band I listened to forever and ever. You can ask my parents, like that was it. Like, my parents used to come in, they would be having band meetings in the living room, and I'd be playing the White Album so loud. My parents would come in and tell me to turn it down. And I'm like, you're in a rock band. You're telling me to turn down my stereo. Like, that's not allowed. Like, that's not, I'm going to tell people that's not cool, man.
You guys are parents now. Damn, bummer.
And it's the Beatles. It's not like it's some death metal, like, so,
yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But anyway, everyone just loved Ringo, and he was nice enough to be in our film. And then
you got a lot of great drummers, man. Perkins really was great on it. Was that Perkins Mid-Century House, or where was that, man? Because that house is dope.
That's a studio. God, I want to say it's somewhere around here. That's a recording studio that Steven knew about.
Wow.
The location is not popping into my head, but we shot a couple different drummers there.
Yeah,
but the cool part
was there.
Yeah, Mandy Moon brought her dad's drum set over.
Oh yeah, I saw that. That was great.
And everybody was just like, we have to touch Keith's kid.
Yeah.
Like, let's just. I'm giving away all the fun parts of the movie, but there's a lot of fun stuff like that because I have to say, I was a producer on Long Strange Trip, which is the most recent Grateful Dead documentary.
Killer.
And when your name's up there with like Scorsese, that's worth price of admission alone, at least in my book, in terms of like, okay, that's super cool. But when you go out to get work, when there's like 800 producers, people are like, yeah, okay, what did you do on it?
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, you want me to break it down? Like, it could be a very shifting thing. What different producers do, as anybody who knows. So I wanted a film that, we did for a very little amount of money that just sort of showed what I can do, like directing, writing, editing, just sort of the whole thing. So let me pick a subject that's close to me that I feel I know enough people that we can get a cast together and do something really cool. So I set out to do just basically a 90-minute film where people were going to tell funny drum stories. As I'm talking to people, like Taylor Hawkins, he starts asking me questions.
Right.
So he's interested, sort of like, well, what was it like for you? And so we get in these dialogues, and the stuff that really hit home and resonated was the stuff about family.
Yeah.
And so when I started editing this thing, although we have bits of humor and sort of on-the-road stories, the family stuff was really where it hit home. And you could see people's eyes light up, and they weren't just telling that story about being on a foos tour, da-da-da-da, but it was like this and drummers that they loved, and you can see everyone, their body language. People like just get up when they're interested, and it's not a press junket. And so the film became way, way more personal than I thought it would be, to the point where I got a call from Mickey Hart and my dad. Because my dad wanted Mickey on the call for support. And I'm like, oh, shit. This is bad. He's like, Mickey's got to, like, chaperone. Like, this is dysfunctional Grateful Dead family 101. All right, hey, how you guys doing? And I was like, is there any way you could change the ending? I'm like, oh, Dad. He's like, I don't know. It's pretty personal, man. It's our lives. I'm like, yeah, that's the point. You know, and by the way, it makes us all look really good. It's cool. Like, you know, da-da-da. He's like, and so I talked him through it, and he's like, and finally he's like, okay, yeah, no, I see. I just wanted to make sure you were thinking about that stuff. I'm like, yeah. So I'll you know, when people see it, they'll understand. But it was just funny when you have that, like, can you just change the ending? Like, that's sort of the whole, you know, the whole heart of the movie. It gets to the end, and it's our family. But anyway, so I'm excited for people to see it. We literally, as you can imagine, there's a lot of paperwork with something like this, but we just finished clearing all the rights to the music and the images, and unfortunately, COVID landed right on top of it. So our running speed went down to a snail's crawl, but we're picking it back up, and hopefully I'll be able to soon tell people to look for it on ...
Yeah. Some great footage in this, man. Like, there's a great photo of you on stage by the soundboard. I don't know, you're like 8 or something, and with some other kid, and there's Bob Weir up there just rocking. And I was like, look at those guys' lives, man, just traveling around. I mean, I read the book, and your dad's book, and I knew what your guys' life was, and it was out there and crazy. But it's cool to see footage of like you with that Super 8 camera, interviewing the dead, you know. And
that was up. My dad, for one summer, for some reason, sent me to Ken Kesey's ranch as like summer camp. And so instantly I found Kesey's video equipment, and myself and Luke Scully and Annabelle Garcia, and they all lived up there. Other Dead family kids, we all started making these movies, and so of course the Dead were coming to town, so we just brought a camera and like just ran out. Those are the days when like you could just like, yeah, we're just gonna go interview the band backstage and film whatever we want, you know. And not that I couldn't later, but there wasn't like 8 security people telling us to like, you know, move over there. And so some of that footage has survived. And actually a funny story about that summer is Ken used to set up a sheet and break out the old 16mm projector. And let's see, what was that? I was 12, maybe? I look like I'm about 12 in this footage. And he starts showing, he's like, let me show you my home movies. So I'm watching all this stuff and lots of lights, and people are drinking something out of this, like, cauldron-looking thing. I'm like, what are you guys doing? Yeah. And he's like, that's the acid. I'm like, what do you mean? I mean, you know, just totally close. Like, what do you mean? And he's like, that's the LSD, Justin. And so what he was showing me is all the old prankster footage from the acid test.
Wow.
And and doing like like, you know, there's no sound. So he's like, oh, there's Babs, and that's Neil Cassidy, and that's da-da-da. And it was just such a great way to kind of like learn about, I mean, obviously I knew about that stuff somewhat, but to sort of get a firsthand, here, watch my home movies, and have Ken and Babs and everybody narrate them for you. That was a fun summer.
It's wild to think that your dad, I read the book, and he just took acid all the time. I mean, all the time. I even heard he was taking acid on the last tour here, Dead & Co. I was like, that is rad.
I can neither confirm nor deny those rumors of any ingestion of the LSD.
But I do want to...
I'm on acid right now.
Yeah, I do want to talk about that because... this guy played a lot of gigs on acid, and I was hoping that he would touch a little bit on what, like, did he ever get out there like, holy shit, this stuff's too strong, and get completely lost, you know?
Fuck yeah, he did. He did.
Can you imagine? You're up there playing drums and you forget where you're at.
Isn't it not in the book? There's the famous story about I don't even know if it was the Fillmore West. I feel it wasn't the Fillmore West, but it was some show in the late 60s where somebody had made a birthday cake, and everybody's like, oh, I'll just put a little acid in. So the next thing I came by, I said, oh, you know, I'll put a little acid. There's a funny interview with Jerry where he says, in an altruistic fashion, everybody came by and said, oh, I'll just add a little acid, not knowing that everybody else had been doing that.
Yeah.
And so everybody like just started eating this cake.
Oh, no.
And of course, you're halfway through it, and somebody goes, Mike's acid. So like any little frosting that you had. And Dad goes up to Mickey, and he's like, Mickey, I am so high. You're going to have to cover me. And Mickey goes, Bill, I can't even see you.
Oh,
And Phil couldn't. And Phil, like Mickey, had to take Phil on stage and plug in his bass. And isn't is that not? In the,
I don't remember that
what's not in the
story.
book, and what's real life, and what's in the book.
Yeah, I
never
don't
know.
remember that, but I mean, I couldn't put that book down. I got it on the road. Somebody gave it to me in Vegas. I was doing shows last year in Vegas, and I just powered through it. That one and the Steve Gorman book, another great drummer from the Black Crust.
I love Steve.
Yeah,
Steve's
great.
a sweet guy.
He's got a good book. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the dark side of drumming because I've had a ton of drummers on, and yours is a great celebration of drummers, but there is that weird dark side where a lot of drummers didn't get any money because they didn't do any of the songwriting. And that's an interesting animal over the last 50 years of rock and roll where the drummer's like, wow, well, I didn't get anything, and that's a really sad thing because a lot of the bands, great bands like Zeppelin and shit, 4 ways.
Yeah,
Boom.
the Chili Peppers.
Yeah, four ways. 4 ways. And I believe some of the drummers should be paid double. I mean, when you got a guy that is the guy, like a Jim Keltner. I mean, Jim Keltner is a sound.
Yeah, but I mean, it's not knowing publishing and whatever deals everybody signed. I think my dad signed some bad. He wrote like 2.5 songs, but fortunately they have all those jams where they credit everybody.
Right.
So that kind of saves my dad in the publishing world. But yeah, I know what you mean because it's a fine line. Not being a musician, but it's a fine line. I think between when you write the song and then you're working on the arrangement. Like, do you get part of that, or like Franklin's Tower? I only know because I was around at the time, was just a beat of my dad warming up, and Jerry came in and heard it, and he's like, dun, 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 and so my dad came up with the rhythm, and Jerry wrote the chords to it, so it gave my dad a co-writing credit.
Rad.
Same with The Wheel, and a lot of the stuff that's on the second side of that first Garcia record was just Jerry and my dad jamming.
Right.
So dad gets a publishing credit on it. But
I do remember reading that actually in the book, which is great.
Yeah, so I mean, stuff like that, but it's like when Jerry would bring in a song that had a melody and the words, and he sort of knew how it went, and the band kind of worked it up, and they all did their parts. But it's like you can't say that everybody wrote. I mean, Jerry and Hunter wrote the song, so to me, that's that area in the middle. I guess if you don't talk about it or you're not fair to everybody, I don't know how. How that really works.
This is how I always said it should go down. If you're in the room and you're working up the song from the ground up, just there's nothing, and by 2 hours later there's something, everybody in there should be involved. But I think what happens with a lot of drummers back in the day would be like, you guys just work it up. I'm going to go hang out, with my lady.
I'm going to look at some chicks.
Right. So they cut out during the work, and then they come back, and then so
that's the thing. I mean, like I've never written a song, but like if I got it together, I wrote chords and a melody and words, and that were good enough to present to other people, I'd be pretty proud of it. And I'd be like, I did this.
Yeah, this is me. But if we're building shit from the ground up in a recording studio or a rehearsal studio, then everybody's in. That's how I cut them in on my records.
That's what's so great about like the Chili Peppers. I remember seeing interviews with them, and they said they did that specifically so that they wouldn't have that fight about the way the money's split up. And I know the Doors did that like on their first record, and then they went back. They swapped it, and I'm doing an interview and saying, don't quote me on this, but I think Nirvana did the same thing where like when Nevermind came out, it was an equal split. And then they renegotiated. But again, I don't know.
Nevermind's the one you want to be on.
I know, but I think they went back and they're like, oh, no, actually now it's retroactive. So you're going to have to give some of that back. That's why, I mean, I just know this from reading. I have no firsthand account for...
There is that strange scene, though, of it, which is pretty wild. I celebrate drummers all the time, like I said on the show. You had some great ones on there. It was great to see Jason Bonham.
Yeah, wasn't that emotional? And Kofi Baker and just some.
Well, Baker, I mean, man, because Ginger, it's so weird because Ginger is just known to be a fucking asshole. That's his thing, his entire life. And then his son said right there towards the end, they've kind of patched it up. But that weird, dark part of him going, "You're dead to me." And it's just like, wow, man. Even his own son, how is that band going to get along with him? You know?
Well, I mean, I was like, when we were listing our you know, our wish list of dream drummers, everyone's like, oh, you know, this is obviously when Ginger was still alive. You know, are you going to try to get Ginger Baker? And I was like afraid. I didn't want to get in a room. I thought he would be mean to me. Like, I was really, and he had his own documentary already. So I was like, you know, but I want to talk to his son. Like, I want to find out, like, I'm friends with Mandy Moon, and I'm just like, even to this day, I just look, I'm like, your dad was Keith Moon. Like, what was that like? You know
the weight of that stuff. I mean, you know, I'm really tight with Jacob Dylan. So, I mean, you know.
I'm buddies with Jacob, too.
Yeah,
He's
so
a great guy.
You're going to get into music. Jason Bonham and I think Jason Bonham and Jacob Dylan, those are two.
Zach Starkey.
Yeah, Zach Starkey. You know, they were heavy icons. I mean, Dylan being the top of it. Fucking, there's no one harder to, you know, pull yourself out of.
Bob Dylan. You could be the guy digging a ditch.
Yeah.
You still have to compete because Bob Dylan's your dad.
Yeah. They're like, Bob would be a way better dig.
But like, how nice is Jacob? He's like the sweetest, down to earth.
He's one of my best friends on the planet.
I've known him for decades now, and still he's just so sweet. And when I introduced him to my wife for the first time, she was just like, you know, he's like too nice. You're like, why is he so nice?
He's
like,
the best.
You just don't expect that. But.
Yeah, he's the best. But Jason Bonham, man, it's wild to think about. He finally got to do that gig at the O2 and really sit into that seat. And he, you know, I watched the O2 like once a year. Yeah. And I watched it recently about 6 months ago, and I was talking to Burr about it because Burr's such a he plays drums and he loves.
Does?
Oh yeah.
Oh my God, my wife and I are such big Bill Burr fans. We went and saw his special being shot at the Fillmore.
Right.
Like a long time ago.
Oh yeah, I do this AC/DC tribute once.
Oh, you got to say hello for me.
Yeah. Can I send him the film over today?
Oh please.
Oh, I will.
We're such huge fans. In fact, we had such good seats at the Fillmore. I'm totally digressing because my wife used to work there. They gave us like 5th row center, and she was pregnant with our first child at the time, like really pregnant, I think. And she was like, "We're gonna be on camera. Like he's gonna start riffing. Like she could just tell that he's gonna like interact with the audience." And she's like, "I don't really feel like being like." So we actually gave our seats to somebody else and went and sat up in the top,
Lincoln booth.
But it was just great watching. I don't go to a lot of. I mean, I think I went to a Robin Williams show. So it was like the 2 comedians that I'd seen live. Which is why we need to get back because I need to come see you. That's what I want to do. But we love big Bill Burr. I don't know where I was going with that story, but
but I'm saying, you know, he loves drums and stuff.
Oh,
so so it's you know, I
would have so put him in the drum dog. I would have put him in there.
That would have been crazy. So
don't tell my producer. Oh, we're gonna do a slight cut. I know we just wrapped the film, but
let's pop him in real quick.
DVD bonus right here.
But we watched the O2, you know, but watching Jason play, it's just kind of like, man, he fucking nailed it. You know?
Did you see? There's a clip in my movie of it's an outtake from Jason playing with his dad when he was a kid.
I love that.
And Jason gave me the whole segment. Which I'll show you. We obviously couldn't use it all in the film, but it's pretty magical when you hear the actual audio of Jason, what he's playing. They use about 5 seconds of it, and the song remains the same, but he's playing along to Dr. John. And it's pretty amazing. I'll send you the clip, and you can share it with
That's
with
great.
Bill.
He's got the Vista lights, the orange Vista light drums, and that's so cool, man. Wow.
That was the problem I had doing that doc. And I think it's probably why the family stuff turned out so much better, because I don't know any of that drum shit, right? And so Jason was like, "Oh, I had the clear plastic heads with the da-da-da-da," and my eyes kind of glazed over, and I'm like, I don't really know any of this kind of. So I never probably followed up on like, "Oh, wow, that was before the Sparkle series, blah, blah, whatever." I don't even know enough to make up fake drum shit right now, but that's why I think definitely the family stuff was more like I could definitely relate to that because I am not a drummer and I never have been.
Well, it's pretty dark too because we're talking about fierce addiction on these on these icons, and then the kids later having fierce addictions. Keith Moon's daughter, talking about how she, just thought that she should be drunk all the time because that's what people expected. At what point in your life do you start getting deep into drugs?
It was pretty early on. Funny enough, it wasn't through Grateful Dead or anything that people might associate with that. That's my conscience telling me to stop with the honking in the back. No. That's my karma saying, you knew you'd have to talk about this someday. But it was when I was sent away to boarding school when I was a teenager, and it was the first situation where anybody said, you can't do drugs. I mean, it wasn't like my parents were like, go do drugs.
Right.
Yeah, we're on the Grateful Dead. We all they're like, yeah, you can't do drugs. They're like normal parents. So and everybody was doing drugs. So I was like, the cool, to be the rebel, you didn't do drugs.
Well, that's
you
like the Zappa kids. That's what they told me.
Yeah,
Teresa told me, he's like, yeah, everybody's doing drugs. And then, my dad was like, you can do them if you want. I don't care. And they're like, well, we don't want to do them then.
Yeah, so I mean, I was totally cool with that. And then I went to boarding school, and it just changed. I mean, they put me in a dorm where everyone listed their favorite activity as going to Grateful Dead shows, thinking that it'd be like-minded people. And they're all really great. I love my dorm mates, but it was like, oh, you're Bill's son? Yeah, come on in. And, when you're like 18, you're not really sure of the world. And, so I delved in. I started then, and it pretty much, I followed the eras. Whatever was kind of the thing to do in certain eras, that's what you did. And, yeah, so late teens is but it wasn't like, I didn't really have a ramping up period. It was kind of like nothing to like, all right, it's on.
Wow.
We're just going. Yeah, it was along those lines. Alcohol and my family are not, is definitely not a good combination. And it's been proven with myself and any number of my family members that we have an allergic reaction to that stuff. So alcohol has been the probably the hardest hitting substance in our family overall, I would say.
Yeah.
Also, just because, as everyone knows, the availability. Like you don't have,
Yeah, and it's not
you
frowned
can probably
upon.
go to a store 5 minutes away from here, and
It's not frowned upon either. It's just like, yeah, we're having drinks,
Yeah. I always have a conflict, just to be totally honest with you, in my soul about how much to talk about those things and how much not to talk about those things, because I tend to want to be funny and entertaining.
Right.
And I don't ever want to make people think, not that anyone would look at me as any kind of role model or anything like that, but I just never want to put out that thing of like, because, there's some funny shit happen, man, and I had some really, really good times, you know what I mean? And then I didn't.
Yeah.
As everybody who's been in recovery can attest to. So I have to sort of balance my wanting to try to make you laugh and tell you funny stories that have to do with partying and stuff like that, with thinking about, what if somebody's hearing this going, God, that sounds kind of cool,
Yeah, I get
so
it.
I'm just being honest with you.
Oh, no. I've been there. I mean, I haven't partied since 92. And
congrats.
Yeah, and
that's a big chunk of time.
I burned it up fierce. And now it's as cheesy as this sounds, like, music, comedy, friends, those are my drugs, man.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll tell you what, I sat on the stage at Dead & Co. in Boulder last year, both days. I watched your dad play 2 feet away, and I watched John Mayer just destroy it on the. And I watched people out in the crowd, fucking smiles, and I was like high as hell from that. Like literally high. Like, man, this is insane. And not in a hippie thing of like, dude, I was fucking, but it's just like when you're not high, like when I'm on stage and I'm not high and I'm doing comedy, the feelings I get are unreal.
Yeah.
I mean, when people are laughing hard, I'm like, this is so
It's got to be that same rush, I imagine.
It's beyond the rush, because you're just looking at it going like, man, these guys are dying right now, or they're not dying, and I'm feeling that. Like, this is dark as shit.
But the best part is you can feel I
can feel it all. That's the thing. I can feel it all. Where before, I played a lot of music gigs high, and I was like, man, I missed out on all of this organic feelings of of the push-pull of that, of ups and downs and all that. So, yeah, I get it, man.
But do you feel like you learned stuff because you went through all that? And
Yeah, I would never trade it for anything. I loved the drug era, and I loved all the experimenting, and then I became an adult. Yeah. And that's just all there is to it. But I would never trade it for anything. Not sleeping for a week, that kind of weird shit. Thinking you're Bukowski, day drinking for years, that's kind of weird. Your first lines of cocaine to your last lines, meth, anything, pills, just try everything and lucky to get out. Yeah. Some people don't get out, which is, we lost some incredible people, Jerry being one of them. But I would never, no regrets.
Yeah, I can't say I don't have any regrets, but like you, I wouldn't change anything because it made me who I am, and it was just my journey. I know that sounds totally very, very cliche.
That's true,
and all
though.
that, but it had to happen. I can't say it had a very helpful impact on my career. I definitely I had a good thing going. Took a bunch of years off for my own delinquency, and then picked it back up. But but now I've got a lovely wife, beautiful kids, and a career, and I'm sitting and I can talk to you, and I can show up at noon and eat together.
And not be like, dude, hey, I don't know where he is, man. I've been calling him all day.
I almost responded to your text when you're like, dope. I was like, yeah, I'm not holding. And I'm like, because some people don't. I mean, I figured you probably weren't one of those, but some people don't take well to drug joke. But
a lot of my set is drugs. I do a bit about there's no dangerous rock and roll anymore. Like when I went to concerts, bands took drugs. And now you go to a show and they're like, make sure you recycle, and you're like, what? You mean needles, right? It's like, what are you talking about?
Exactly.
It's crazy. I'm glad your dad made it out.
Yeah,
because you got your dad. Which is
I am too. And to get back to the drummer doc, talking to Mandy and Kofi and Jason and people like that. That was the real hard hitting point of I look at them and just wonder. I just see that in their eyes and when I talk about I'm going to see my dad next week. And just looking at them, just going, fuck, that's... and we interviewed Kofi literally 2 weeks after his dad died. So
yeah.
It's all the emotion you see in the film. I mean, you can tell it's not staged. Everything is real, and that's why I left in. When people see it, I left in a little of me talking to them. I trust me. I did not want to be in my own film. I'm not that guy. They had to hold a gun to my head literally to start a social media account. And eventually people are like, if you don't, some other dick is just going to say they're you and just start it. It's what the kids are doing these days. So I begrudgingly started one. And now I actually have fun with it. But it's more, the film turned out a lot more personal just because I started interacting with people, and I thought that was kind of cooler than maybe hearing a hotel room story.
Yeah. So. Oh yeah, totally. That's burnt shit. You know what I mean? Anybody that wouldn't do it?
Oh yeah. No, there was some, and it was usually the folks that I had no relationship with or connection, and also hated the Grateful Dead.
Wow, hated the Grateful Dead.
There was. I won't name names, but let's just put it this way to continue the name drop section. Sammy Hagar texted me and said, "Yeah, he wouldn't do my show either. He's a dick." We'll just leave it at that. But Sammy was great. Sammy was texting me, "Here's Trey Cool. You should get him." I didn't know Trey at all. He was great, and Jason, obviously, who I already had known. But Sammy was like, "Oh, you should get this drummer and that."
I've been trying to get Sammy on the show 10 years.
Well, I'll text him, and
that'd be great.
Not that I have pull over Sammy Hagar. He lived next to. I lived in Mill Valley for decades, and he's a Mill Valley resident. So we always saw Sammy. He's also Weir's neighbor. So
it's wild to think about the dual drum thing. Really wild. Allman Brothers and the Dead, dual drummers, and it really is a complete different thing. It really is. If you listen to the Dead when it's just your dad, and then you get into the Dead with Mickey, it's a rhythm landscape, which is really wild. It's a rolling sound that really sets it up for some great jamming where the guys can just go anywhere they want. You've just got this, you know, I mean, Mickey really nerds out on it. You know, I love him for that, of the, you know, you got the African beats or 2000 BC. And
he'll take you down that road all day long.
Yeah. But the Allman Brothers really killed it with the dual drummers. It was so wild to me to hear. That is a machine, man.
I always wonder how much of that is the one drummer versus two drummer, and how much of that is just the band changing from different eras. And you know, so you always sort of like, I wonder what 77 would have been like if it was one drummer.
Right.
You know, would that magic have happened? You know what it's always, you know, it's for no particular reason, but people are always like, with your dad, it was so different, and And I agree with any different combination of musicians, it's going to be different. But I also think with a band like that that's always changing, and inevitably, you know, 77 would have sounded different than 74, even with one drummer. In my humble opinion. You know what we didn't get in the film, which I wanted to, but it just didn't work out, is we were talking a lot about Jim Gordon.
Oh, man.
We had a whole Jim Gordon thing.
Holy shit.
And this will be the DVD extra. And Keltner told me a lot of really, really interesting stuff that I didn't know about Jim. And get this. Actually, I was about to tell you a story about a drummer that I actually cut from the film, so never mind. But Keltner told me a lot of amazing stories about Jim Gordon. And Steve Ferroni was talking about the Jim Gordon Keltner drummer combo for the Joe Cocker Mad Dogs and Englishmen tour.
Ooh, man.
And Don Was talking about that. And it was some really emotional stuff. Just in the context of the film, it felt like a left turn because you sort of have to explain who Jim Gordon is, and we had to go. He deserves his own film. I mean,
absolutely.
It's Jim Gordon. But
him and Keltner, man. I mean,
you could do a whole film. I've got footage that the bass player's daughter from Derek and the Dominoes sent me of them all recording at Clapton's house. Anyway, but Jim Gordon was somebody that I tried to get in this film, or his story at least. In fact, I wrote to him in prison, and about the third time, as I'm stamping our home address, my wife comes over and goes, You're giving our address to and I'm, you know, state penitentiary. Exactly. Who are you writing to and giving us all? And I'm like, it's Jim Gordon. And like, and what did he do? And I'm like, oh, he played on this. And like, she's like, no, what did he do? Why is he in prison? So anyway, but you know, it's an amazingly sad story, but his body of work is just so incredible. And it turns out Jim Keltner's son, Eric, who is in the documentary and also did some music we use in the documentary, photographed Jim Gordon about 3 months before the tragedy. I'll just call it that, the murder. And so I was just like, what was that like? He's like, yeah, I went to his house and it was just me and Jim, and he had, you know, You're So Vain gold records on the wall and all sorts of stuff. And he was literally the last guy to photograph him before the murder occurred and all that.
Wow.
People can Google Jim Gordon to get the details. But yeah, if you could picture it in the film, it was such a, like, the story's going this way, and we would have had to go all the way out here and then come back around, and it was great. And it broke my heart to not use it. Yeah. But watching it without it, I was like, yeah, this kind of, the flow, it just affected the flow.
Yeah. Well, you made a great film, man.
Thank you.
I really like it, and like I said, I love drummers and all their stories, and you know, usually I love drummers until you hang out with them. You're like, quit fucking banging on the car dash, dude. You know, just yeah. It's like after a while,
table shaking.
Oh man, when you're flying with them and they're just like bouncing in their seat, you know, and popping on the fucking guy's seat in front
playing
of them.
Playing with their swizzle straws.
All of it, man. And after a while, you're like, what are you fucking doing? But some drummers are really chill. Your dad's really chill. You know, he's just kind of like, all right, here we are, you know. Before we get out of here, what are your takes on, say, Fare Thee Well with Trey versus the Dead & Co. with Mayer?
I liked them both. Yeah. You know, I mean, Fare Thee Well was the more emotional remembering the good old days, and it was great to see Phil, because I love Phil. Phil and Jill have been nothing but nice to me my entire life and supportive of my career, and just this is my great Phil story. I think funny enough. I think it's that same tour. I seem to be locked into like summer '78.
Yeah.
We're flying to Red Rocks. And my dad had just met a woman, Shelley, who went on to be my stepmother, but they were dating at the time. So Shelley and I had coach seats. So Dad took my seat to sit back with her, and he gives me his first class seat. So it's me and Phil. So we're sitting in the front, and the stewardess is like, can I take your order? Take your order. And Jerry's asleep behind us, and snoring. And she comes over, and she's like, ask Phil what he wants, and then asks Phil what I want. And Phil looks at her and goes, I don't know. He's a human being. Ask him. And when you're like 8, you're just, fuck yeah. I'll have a Coke. Thank you very much. But just that, you just felt so like, and she was weird because she was like offended that they'd given an 8-year-old this first class. Like she just could not wrap her head around how somebody would give up their seat for a child. And I loved Phil. I just remember that, just thinking like, fuck you. All right, Phil. Anyway, I don't know where I was going. I like Phil.
One of my last shows headlining was at Terrapin. Sold it out. Comedy, dude. First comedy show ever in there. It was rad.
I used to get clam chowder when I was the sea peddler at that place.
Yeah, remember that, right?
That's where I first had my first drink in public when I was 17. Because when you go out with celebrities, you can pretty much do whatever you want.
Yeah.
And we were taking a break from In the Dark because Front Street was right near there, the Grateful Dead studio. And Jerry's ordered a White Russian. It looked like a milkshake. And I'm like, what's a White Russian? He's like, oh, and I'm just like, oh, I'll try one of those. So it's a little kid. I mean, I had all my hair back then. I was 17. I looked like I was 12. I'm like, I'll take a White Russian. Yeah. And the woman went and brought it to me, and me and Jerry were drinking White Russians, and I'm like, no idea. I thought, like, God, this doesn't taste as good as it looks. Yeah. No idea about the alcohol thing.
Yeah.
And I remember going back to the studio, and I was just like, I don't even think I drove yet. I was really young. And so that was like my first. And it was just sort of funny. I didn't realize I was ordering like an alcoholic drink, and I didn't realize that I was breaking many laws. But anyway, that was the seafood peddler. But anyway, that was a really roundabout way to get back to your question. Fairly Well was really emotional because it was a celebration of the past, and it was having the 4 guys together again. Everyone was like, how is this gonna work?
Right.
And Trey was a great person to have be there to sort of diffuse anything, and everyone got on really well. And then Dead and Company is sort of an ongoing thing, so it was a different mindset, and John's a new guy to all of us, I think Bob only met him a little before they started doing that, so
right.
He's a new energy who we'd all known about. And I remember they were rehearsing up at San Rafael, and I was living in Los Angeles already by that point, and I usually would just fly commercial back to see my family over the weekends. I was filming some of the rehearsals, and John's like, "You want to ride with me?" And I'm like, "Sure." I'm thinking like, does he drive? Like, sure, I'll drive with me or whatever. But of course, it's the private plane. He's like, "Yeah, just come in." So I called my wife. I'm like, "I'll be home in like 10 minutes."
Wow.
So we're on the plane. Nobody's around. This is the first time it's ever been just me and John. And I finally go like, "Dude, can I just like say something, off the record?" I'm like, "Dude, I just want to thank you." I think he thought I was going to like thank you for the music. And I'm like, "Thank you for not being an asshole." Like I wasn't sure like you're going to be the douchiest guy like ever, and you're like actually really cool. I just wanted to thank you for that. Yeah. I was like, "Oh yeah."
I fucking love the guy.
Yeah,
I love the guy, man. It's like crazy how great he is, and I thought Trey was fantastic in Fairly Well. I would have liked to see Trey play for another like 4 weeks and really see where that went. Where he was like, "All right, I'm in here now. I'm going to step."
That's the thing. It was just there wasn't a lot of rehearsal.
Not at all.
There was only those shows. Yep. I personally, I mean, don't shoot me, Rhino. Everything now is like you release everything. Bands release every show from every tour, every show. And I don't think everything needs to be released. Like I thought Fairly Well would have been a great, of course, like 90-minute documentary with just like the best musical bits from the shows. Instead of releasing every single moment from every single show. But
right.
That's just my opinion.
Yep.
I tend to go for the documentary as opposed to the stage.
I'm looking forward to your film coming out. Congrats on it. It's Let There Be Drums, and hopefully it'll be out soon.
Yeah, well, I'll we should. I'm not inviting myself back on your show.
Please do. Come back.
We should bring some drummers when it's about to come out. Or kind of
Let me tell you something. If we could get if we could talk to Keltner, or there's many guys he had on. Perkins said he would do it for 10 years straight. He hasn't done it, you know. It would be great to grab a couple of those dudes and talk some serious drums with them.
For sure.
You and them.
It's going to happen. It'll happen.
That'll be fantastic. All right, thank you so much. Give them your Instagram real quick.
I think it's just Kreutzmann or Justin Kreutzmann. That's what I get.
It's Justin Kreutzmann.
Okay.
That's it on Instagram.
Sometimes it's hard to remember that.
Yeah, follow him. Oh man, I just remembered that you put up some really cool stuff that you filmed over the years, and that there's that Roger Daltrey one that you just put up getting ready. And somebody hit me yesterday and said, "Oh, you got him coming on, man. He's got so much fucking old footage of everything. Are you able to put any old Dead, old Who, old Motley Crue, everything that you worked on? Are you able to just kind of fly that stuff out on Instagram? Because it'd be cool. It's history."
Well, I mean, obviously I don't own the music.
Right.
So like putting up the Motley Crue clip, which I did a while ago, that was because it was just Mick Mars, and that's footage that was in a documentary that I released. A lot of my documentaries are the ones that are like DVD bonus, or like the Who film that the Roger Daltrey clip is from. It was a fan club only release, so I think I have 100 copies left, and I think they only gave out 300. I mean, it's a very limited edition, but it was from a released thing. And I'm doing some current projects with Pete and Rachel Townsend. I did the whole Attic tour with them, which is how I got to work with The Who, because Pete sublet me to The Who. And anyway, it's a long story, but I've got a lot of footage from a lot of different bands. And so I think as long as it's people that I'm currently, that currently like me, and I'm not using a lot of music, I can do it. It's
great shit, man.
And a lot of these, like we're doing there's going to be a new Pete and Rachel project that I'm working on. So a lot of the stuff is sort of teasing people before we announce full-on projects.
Yeah. Well, you and I should talk about this Day in the Green doc I want to do.
Yeah, we should get the grandkids involved. So we can,
I think it's. I've been talking about it for 10 years, and I think it's one of the most iconic concert series ever. And it is the epitome of the ultimate pre-festival, minus Europe. Europe was doing it for years and stuff, but Bill really had a vision, and just the way those stages were set up with the scenery,
It's such a Bay Area thing too. And I was going to say, Bill was gonna. I mean, if anybody's seen the famous Lynyrd Skynyrd footage from the Day on the Green,
love it.
That was going to be the first in a series of Day on the Green shows that Bill. That's why he started. That's why that was filmed. Bill wanted to do a series.
Right.
I guess I don't know if it was going to be for TV. It was like, what was that, 1977?
Yeah,
something like that. And that's why that was filmed, because he wanted to come out, and then Skynyrd crashed. What, it was months later.
Yep.
So they just put the footage away. And
I watched all the footage, every one of them. So about 20 years ago, my friend was in charge of digitizing it after the fire and everything. They're whoa, we got to save this shit. Yeah, Pete Dockendorf is his name. And he had this equipment, and they would bring him over. And on Sundays, he'd go, "Come over, we're going to digitize Zeppelin today." And I would sit there and watch the entire concert. I watched them all.
All right, we got to talk, because I've got another project coming up, which I honestly can't talk about on the air.
Yeah.
Only because I don't want to jinx it, because right now we're in the lawyer contract stage.
Yeah,
so
yeah,
I don't want to fuck that up. But you're talking my language, because we should do some cool stuff. But I appreciate being on the show. We need to talk about you more.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
I'm just blabbering on. Like,
no, it's about you, dude. I mean, I've been doing this show 10 years. People know.
There's this great. I don't know if you've ever seen this guy does a site called Thoughts on the Dead.
Oh, yeah.
You ever seen that, where it's like this really sort of funny but snarky, like he puts up dead stuff and kind of just rips on everybody.
Yeah.
And there's a picture it was like a family picture of all the Grateful Dead family, and they were trying to name like who was in the picture, and the guy posted, "You don't need to know anybody else but the band." Oh no, it was us with Obama. That's what it was. And it was like people were trying to guess who the other people in the picture were, besides the band members. And I just remember at first I was like reading it, but then I was like, yeah, actually, it's kind of true. You don't need to know anybody else but the band. But
yeah. I love guys like you on here, though. You were there. Jay Blakesberg, you. Dudes that were fucking there. Steve Parrish. That's it is history.
Well, you were there. You were there.
I was there. Yeah.
You know, just wasn't the Dead. You were there for your stuff and different bands.
And the Bay Area, man, we were just engulfed in some of the greatest music of all time. I mean, of all time. If you go from the Dead and Starship, Santana, then you get into later on Tubes, Journey, Dead Kennedys, Metallica. Just, I mean, hundreds of bands out of there. There's something in the water, man. It is more than anywhere, I think.
Well, I mean, and 20 people are going to post the right way. But I can't remember a time when the local scene, like I'm thinking of the 60s, when Bill Graham would put on a Miles Davis or some amazing act before the Airplane or the Dead or Quicksilver, because the show was already going to sell out having the local band play.
Yep.
And actually, it's Seattle. Probably Seattle in the early 90s was another thing where the local scene was so popular.
But the combination of that, man, like Cheech and Chong, Miles Davis.
Well, no, the combination, that's amazing. I'm just talking about when your local scene is the most popular thing going on, that your local guys can fill the night, so you can get I think Bill called it, like you have to eat the steak before you get to the dessert,
Right.
And I just, but I just now thought about, like, I'm sure Seattle in the early 90s.
But still, that was really short and quick as far as Seattle. We're talking about small clubs, and then, the Moore Theater had a lot of it. But it was...
Did you ever see those? Were you going to a lot of those kind of bands?
I booked Alice in Chains and Pearl Jam at the Omni. I used to book the Omni and the Stone. With my partner, Jimmy Arsenault.
Yeah, I spent some time at the Stone.
Oh, God, yeah. The Stone, dude, that was my house. The Stone deserves a documentary, man. I mean...
Who was the video guy, the English guy that used to do the in-house video at the Stone on Broadway?
English guy?
Yeah, I communicated with him recently. He was just, that single camera that would go up.
Oh, yeah.
I forgot his name, but...
well, they taped everybody, dude.
I know. That's why I'm on for this project that we'll talk about when we're not on the air. That's one of the reasons.
Garcia played the shit out of that place.
Yeah. Well, we'll discuss.
Okay, man.
We'll discuss. But I really appreciate being on the show. I actually forgot other people are going to be listening to this.
Yeah. Well, that's great.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you so much. Looking forward to it. And when it does come out, we will get some drummers here and we'll do a round table. And I cannot wait for that.
It's a deal.
Thank you, man. See you guys. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Let There Be Talk. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube and iTunes. Leave a review and tell a friend. See ya.